Hello, everybody. So good to see you here. Thank you for joining us today into Intro to Startup Scene, an AMA with Jeannie Edmunds, which I'm so excited for you to meet her. We're going to be talking to her. It's going to be conversational. So please feel free to be putting questions in the chat. But before we start, I wanted to bring up our CEO, Josh Baer, to share a little bit more about what Capital Factory is about.
Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas. Thousands of entrepreneurs, programmers, and designers gather day and night, in person and online, for meetups, classes, and co-working. And with our team spread across the state in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, we meet all the best entrepreneurs in Texas and introduce them to the people that they need to meet most: investors, customers, and talent to grow their team. We watch all of this happen so that we have this unique insight into the market and use that to invest in all the best companies through our Texas Fund. And we've been the most active early stage investor in Texas since 2010.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, for the intro. Like he mentioned, Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs, and it is to get you plugged into the ecosystem here in Austin. Whether you're just at the beginning or further along in your startup journey, we are here to help you and be a strategic partner for you. We host this AMA monthly to provide information on all of these resources and additional information, start conversations with our different mentors, which Jeannie is one of them, one of the most amazing mentors that we have in the channel. And so we will be taking questions, like I mentioned, throughout the panel and the program. And so feel free to just put them, and then we'll be addressing them one by one throughout the conversation. And so without further ado, I would love to bring Jeannie Edmunds onto the stage. Hey, Jeannie, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. So nice seeing you. I'm so glad that we're doing this, and that the audience get to meet you and get to talk to us. Like I said, where it's going to be conversational between you and I and the audience. And so I want to introduce you. Jeannie is a strategic advisor and mentor to startup companies throughout the US, not just Texas, and even internationally for over 10 years. She has consulted in marketing, business development for startups and a variety of sectors, from SaaS to skincare. She's currently involved in fundraising for supplements using plant-based medicines, which is awesome. And with her background in in direct response TV, Jeannie specializes in building brand stories and direct-to-consumer sales, as well as preparing companies for investment. She, like I said, mentioned, is one of the mentors at Capital Factory, and we're so proud to have her as part of our Rolodex and SKU in Austin. And so she's been a producer, like I said, in the US and British TV networks. She's been an on-camera reporter for CNN and Seoul, Kiev, and she's also a filmmaker. I can continue going on. But lastly, I wanted to bring up, Jeannie actually just launched her book of Start Me Up, Tips, Truths, Talents, and Tales about starting up and starting over. Is that right, Jeannie?
Yeah, tips, tales, and truths about starting up and starting over.
Awesome. And so wanted to just, start the conversation. And that's how Jeannie and I, we talked about how you could say, one of the founders that failed in my start, after college. We, won $100,000 pitch competition, but then I, fell flat on my face, like it happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. And so we wanted to, start a conversation with that. And then obviously circle back to what her book is about, which is exactly that type of experience.
Yeah, I hate to start with a technical question, but the producer in me, I just lost power out here in the hill country, and I have my phone in my hand, and I'm also on the laptop. So where am I supposed to be looking? Am I looking at you now if I'm looking in this camera?
No, look at this.
Other one. Okay.
There you go.
All right. I don't want people to think I'm shifty out here. So you were talking about your failure, and it was really interesting. I really like starting with failure, and I don't really like to use the word failure, but it is a badge of honor in the startup community. I mean, not everybody fails, but most people.
We lost you, Jeannie. Can you hear us? Still no audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can hear me now. Okay.
Yes.
Did you hear that part?
The last one, we lost you for like a minute.
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. So, it's something that everybody faces, and anybody who's in a startup and is watching this, knows that this is just the price of admission. But it's not anything to be ashamed of. It's not anything to put you back on your heels, because you always learn from it. You always learn from it. And this is true with failing in any life, but especially in the startup world.
Yeah.
What did you learn from it?
I learned that maybe I was just not being as resourceful to be reaching out for mentorship, because I would have, I would have loved to have like met the Capital Factory. I'm going to be honest, because nobody really like put me under their wing or gave me that advice for me to like continue to push forward, because customers, I knew who my customers were, I was reaching out to them, but then the whole manufacturing. So to give a little bit of a context, mine was a biomed product. And so it was, manufacturing and then fundraising before it and just knowing what the steps are, and books like yours, books like Gordon's, our co-founders, would have been an awesome resource for me to take advantage of.
Well, yeah, I mean, having a mentor is so valuable. And the way the Capital Factory does it is really interesting. It's one-on-one. You get, you sign up for a half an hour once a month with you can sign up as often as you want to with as many mentors as you want to. I've talked to one 17-year-old entrepreneur who had talked to 100 mentors at the Capital Factory. But you go one-on-one, and that's a really good thing because you get some good quality free advice.
Yes.
One of the dangers of that, though, is what you call mentor whiplash. When one mentor tells you one thing, another mentor tells you another. It's your job as a founder to do what I was talking about in the book, which is to try to figure out the difference between advice that sounds good and good advice. Right. And that is a real hard thing to learn how to do as a founder, but it's really one of your jobs. The other one is to raise money if you need money. But I think that there are so many good and qualified mentors in different areas of expertise. I'm more of a generalist. So because I've worked in a lot of different types of startups and I've started, 2 or 3 companies with 2 or 3 other people myself, I, have more of a general background. I've worked in product. I've worked in, everything from marketing to packaging to preparing for investment, all of that stuff. And so you'll get a little broader perspective with somebody like me. But it's really valuable to have both. I'll tell a little story from my background. I worked in the Library of Congress for a while. I ran a documentary unit there. And I was, as somebody who scans the horizon, I'm not a driller, I'm really more of a scanner. As somebody who scans the horizon, I was fascinated being around people who were experts in a little tiny narrow niche, but they knew everything about that one thing. So you can get the benefit of both. And I would suggest getting mentors with both kinds of, advice.
Totally. Yeah. Right. The people that see it up closely and the people that see the broader view that would point out something that maybe you missed because you're looking at the problem too closely.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And there are wonderful mentors at the Capital Factory, but in other places too. I mean, I'm also a mentor for SKU in Austin, and also in Dallas and also in New York. And these are consumer packaged goods, and they mentor in a group. They do a team. But the confusion there is sometimes the founder will go away and say, oh my God, the team, they can't agree with each other, or they do agree, but they do agree with each other. They're coming from different points of view, right? They come to a conclusion, but it's a founder's job to sift through which one of those mentors has the advice that I need today, Right. It's really something that, in other words, it's all on the founder. I mean, the founder has got to do the work. If you think you're going to start a company, it's a lot of work, and you have to be.
Everybody else lost her. Let's give her a minute. Jeannie, we're losing you.
I'm sideways now.
Okay,
did I just go sideways?
Yeah. Okay. I think we got you. Awesome. Yeah. That's exactly it. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Exactly. I mean, you really have to have a passion for it. And honestly, if you are doing the right thing, people will come around you. People will swarm. It's almost the way, this sounds a little mystical, but it's the way the universe works, right? If you are doing something that you're meant to do in the world, then all these little angels will come around you and they will support you,
Yep.
It's amazing how that works. And the failure sometimes, and for example, in the case of your failure and other failures, my past failures, you weren't meant to be doing that. And you were meant to learn from that experience.
Exactly. And I mean, hopefully, as a founder, you don't get to like fail and fall flat on your face, but somebody picks you up and you're open to that feedback for you to pivot, for you to improve it, or for you to look in another direction that maybe you didn't want to look at, but life is making you look that way, And I think that's also a way for mentorship, for you to guide you a way that maybe you didn't think of. And it's very, very important as a founder to just be open to feedback. If there's any founders that I love working with, is founders that are like, yes, I'll take any tips, any advice. Like, I love to learn, and they continue to succeed.
I lost you there for a second.
No worries.
Say it again. Say it again.
I think, are we losing you?
Hell, no, I lost you for a second. Say
Okay. Yeah, just telling founders, to be coachable, to listen, to be able to take on advice. I think it's one of the best attributes that you can also have as a founder.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Jeannie, tell us a little bit about, what you've seen in the Texas startup scene, and then how you split your time between Texas and California.
Okay. The first time I came to Texas, I came to school here, University of Texas, and Austin was about 250,000 people then. It was a sleepy little southern town. Austin is fire today. There is so much happening in Austin, and the rest of Texas too, Dallas, Houston. There's so much going on here, and there's so much, there's like this vibrant scene here that is exciting to be around. And while the startup community in LA is really friendly and helpful, and they're helpful to each other, that's just in the nature, I think, of entrepreneurs, when they're first starting out, because they understand the struggle, right? But I would say that Austin and Texas in general, people are just friendly here, and you'll get a lot of support. You'll get advice. It's easy to plug in to people. It hasn't been in the last year, unfortunately. Amazingly, Capital Factory has been able to keep the things going, with all these virtual events. They've been fantastic, because we have stayed connected. One of the best things that Capital Factory offers actually is this Slack channel. If you sign up with Capital Factory, if you come in as a company, but you can do that, but you can also just sign up to be on the Slack channel, and it's very active, and it's got full of fantastic information from investors. They have AMAs with investors all the time. You can ask direct questions to people that you might not normally meet. Yeah. And I think that the whole virtual thing has taught a lot of us how to do business in different ways, so long as the technology works. We're so dependent on it right now. It's really a shame when things go wrong, but it's I think we all learned how to manage this, how to have good conversations virtually through the last year. And I think this is going to continue, because you can reach more people in more places, get fresher ideas. This is why we can work with these startups around the world, that I'm mentoring through Expert Dojo in LA. Their companies. I mean, I was on a call last month, I guess, with them, and we had entrepreneurs from India, Poland, Egypt, London, and one other country. And it was, and they all learned from each other, by the way, and they're in different verticals, but they're still learning. There are certain problems that are common to all startups, and they can help each other work through those problems. And as a mentor, I can help guide the conversation with them among themselves, right?
Totally. And talking about
and
startup,
the other thing I want to say about mentoring is that I recommend that people also be a mentor at least once in their lives. Even if you're young, even if you're starting out, something, and you can help somebody else. and pay it forward, right?
Yep.
And an interesting way to explore another industry and to test out your idea is to go into that industry, meet somebody in that industry who may want to know what you know. I'm
Right.
always learning from startups, just like you learn from your children. You know, as parents, any parent will tell you, you learn so much from your children. And I learn as much mentoring companies as the companies learn from me, because I learn, you know, what the latest trend is in packaging or whatever, and the latest marketing trends, social media, what investors are looking for, what the deck. I see so many decks, and I know, you know, they've gone from being really massive, like big plant type decks, to lots of pictures, graphics, so just telling a story to get in the door, which is so
Right.
important. We all respond to story.
Totally. So is there any cool companies that you've seen go through Capital Factory?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I happen to have show and tell, but I got to do it with one hand because I have my phone here. So I found this company called Pedal. I mentored this guy, Jason. They're these little, I can't open the can, but these little pods are just dropped in one at a time into this little soap pump. And they're little soap pods, and they're clean, super nice, super good for the ocean, good for the environment. It's very green company, wonderful. Then with SKU, I've seen lots of other wonderful companies at Capital Factory. Won't go off with them yet. There's a company called Kantaka, which is an online fitness program, Kanthaka. They're really growing like crazy. And it's a way to hire a personal trainer to come to your house, but you do it virtually, right? And they screen all these trainers, the woman who runs it, very smart woman. And it's just wonderful. Kantaka, by the way, was Buddha's horse, and she's a polo player, and she loves horses. So she thought, okay, the strength, the power, everything about horses really makes me feel like that's a good name for the company. So that company is doing really well. There's another one at Capital Factory called Blended Sense. They create videos for small businesses and help them grow. And they started in Austin, actually, during the pandemic. This founder had a baby right in the middle of all this when she was starting her company, launching her company, had a baby, the pandemic hit, and yet they're still standing, not only still standing, but they're doing really well. So, they make these videos to help. Yeah, they're super cool. And then this other company that I was mentoring on the team with SKU is called Jaws Kicks. I happen to have their product here. They're two sisters from India, but look at this packaging. I mean, it's incredible. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's a pre-shampoo called a pre-poo that it's Ayurvedic, and you put it into your hair before you shampoo and condition. It's really leaves your hair beautiful. So there's so many others. There's a site, it's called growgardeno.com, Gardeno. They send you plants, and they help you grow your plants, by app. And that's good for me because I do not have a green thumb, and I'm terrible at growing plants. So it's a wonderful. So there's just so much variety. There are music startups. There are like AI startups. There's just, and a lot of military, by the way. If anybody has a military, something they think that the military could use, I did mentor a 3D printing company that could print 3D parts for tanks and weapons and so forth in the field. Really great. They're doing well. And they were a Capital Factory company. But if anybody, has an idea for the military, Capital Factory really has a great network and a program, actually, that will, plug you into the military people here. They're very interested in what's going on in Austin.
Totally. I mean, we have AFWorks in the building, we have a 4-star general housing out of Capital Factory. And so it's definitely the place to be also if your customer is a DoD. Awesome, Jeannie. Well,
right. It's great. And now that we've all come back together, now that we can all be in person, there's just no reason not to be able to network with these people. There's all kinds of other ways to network. I don't know if we're in the network section yet. I mean, are we in that part of the program?
Yeah.
How do you, a question I frequently get asked is, how do you find a co-founder? How do you find a mentor? How do you find an investor? And all of these are done the same way. There is so much information out there that's easily available to people, in 2021. It did not exist 20 years ago, 30 years ago for the internet. You used to have to go to the library and look all this stuff up, or try to meet people through your own connections and connections of connections. And by the way, just because you used to do it that way doesn't mean you can't do it again. Let me just give a little tip about libraries. The reference librarian in every public library is tasked with answering any question on any subject at any time. It's free. If you're looking for a list or some articles or names or books or anything that you can read, use your reference librarian. Google is not the be all end all. I think that reference librarians are a great resource and a free resource. And free is the operating word when you're starting a company. Obviously, you want to look for as much free advice as you can get. Totally. LinkedIn is another fabulous resource. LinkedIn is just the best. Lunch Club is great. Meetups are great. Some meetups are better than others, honestly. Meetups can be hit or miss, but I've had some really good conversations on Lunch Club if somebody's interested in joining that. I would say that is a really powerful tool, and they've added more features now. And I don't know if it's legal to scrape LinkedIn. I don't think it is, but there are ways to look people up on LinkedIn and to engage with them, even if you don't have the membership, the paid membership. You can certainly do your homework on LinkedIn and find amazing people. And a lot of people will connect with you, even if you don't know them. And then you start a conversation, or you comment on their posts. You find people that you admire, follow them, comment, and then you start to get recognized.
Exactly.
And get your feedback that you get.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And so wanted to go in a little bit more about, you went over resources, wanted to go more into the diversity and inclusion track of things. Tell us your experience. I know that you're passionate about it, so I'll let you take it over.
Well, look, diversity and inclusion means a lot more than race. I mean, it's about religion, it's about age, it's about age, younger and older ages discrimination. It's about cultural sensitivity. And, I honestly would like to, the interview in me, used to, the journalist in me wants to know your experience, in San Antonio. You've been, your last name is Gonzalez. Okay. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, I came to the US when I was 14. And so, I dealt with the whole, sorry.
From where?
From Guadalajara, Mexico, where tequila is made, if anybody knows anything about that. So yeah, I actually moved to Houston when I was 14. I went to high school. Then I moved to UTSA when I was 18. So I moved to San Antonio. I went to college through there. And that's just a little bit about it. I loved my university because I went through a Hispanic serving institution, and I chose that for a reason, because it was just going to be the best of both worlds. And I got a lot of support on that end. But as a minority founder, and you talk about ages, and, San Antonio is a very, how do you call it? Old people's city. We are just seeing, two progressives of under 30 for the first time getting elected into city council in Austin. And so it's starting to become a little bit more progressive, not as fast as Austin, but you see it change a little bit. Obviously, we're in the very Hispanic city, so I don't feel like there's a lot of the race, barriers. Jeannie, by the way, I don't know what's happening on your end, that it's moving.
It's moving. Oh, well, I'm moving my knee. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Are
Just
you
because it's
okay?
like,
Is it all right now?
yes, it
Trying
sounds
to
good.
give you the live action shot here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's been interesting, obviously you do see the woman card or obviously the Hispanic one, the ageism, being young in a city that's just always run by older people. And so that's my
Yeah.
experience.
And this is a really interesting thing intergenerationally, how people like me are working with people like you and your age group. At first, after I went out of working with startup companies and started mentoring them and advising them, and the difference between mentoring and advising, mentoring is free, advising is paid for. I was really surprised at how embraced I was by young people who really valued my advice and because I've seen it, I've done it, I've been there. And I see with people in their 20s, by the way, I have a 22-year-old daughter. Everything just seems like a disaster when you're in your 20s. It's so scary. The world is new. You don't know where you're going. Trying to make decisions is hard. And I'm telling you, when you get to my end of life, I have a line in my book that menopause made me the ninja I am today. Honestly, when you get into your 60s, which I am, it's smooth sailing. And this is what I want to give all of you people hope in your age group. There's great things that happen so long as you can keep your health, right? And I go to the gym every day, I work out. So long as you are lucky enough to be healthy and you're curious, you have to have a curious mind. You have to read widely and make a wide variety of friendships and, and network with people who may not be people that would be helpful to you now, but maybe down the road.
Right.
I mean, honestly, you can meet somebody today who 5 years from now is going to give you a job or bring you into their company, or even 10 years from now. It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly, I went to UTSA and I became student body president, and I met and networked with so many people that they saw everything that I was doing, and it's those people that I'm still, touching base with, the city council, councilman became the mayor. And then obviously, then now I'm close to the mayor, because of my experience there. And everything that you do, it just kind of, multiplies because everybody continues to grow the network and that becomes your network.
And that never goes away so long as you nurture it. I think,
Exactly.
occasionally you check back in with them. You don't, like an investor, for example, and we'll get into the investment section later, I'm sure. But you don't want to go to people for the first time that you meet them and ask them for something. Yeah. In fact, it's a good strategy to offer to help. I've had a lot of people do this to me lately, say, what can I do for you? Well, not really anything, but thank you for offering. It feels good when people say that to you. It feels nice. And now, it's just wonderful to be able to pay it forward. I've had some success. I've had some failures in my life, but I've had some success. And it's just so nice to be able to pay it forward and to help bring some great things into the world. Because honestly, this is not just about making money. This is about solving problems. It's about changing things. It's about changing the way things work. It's about disrupting industries. It's about, doing things in new ways that other people may not have thought of. I really love that about startups. They make me very excited. Yeah. It's exciting to work with them for that reason.
Totally. And, talking about bringing an idea to life, there was a question in the audience of how do you deal with early stage IP? Because retail entrepreneurs, you need to talk to people, but maybe it's an idea and there's no IP and maybe somebody will steal it. What do you say to those people?
People worry about that a lot and they worry about it too much because it's about the execution. It's there are a lot of people that have the same idea, believe it or not. There are a lot of people in the world that have the same idea. But if you're the person to execute it, if you think that you've got what it takes to bring this thing to market in whatever way it is, whether it's a software or a real life product or a service, then you're going to be better if you dig in and do it. You know, I'll tell you a funny story. I had an idea about 15 years ago for a product called Doggy Goggles. And I had a dog that used to love to stick his head out the window, you know, and like the air would come by. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool? These leather, like pilot Snoopy goggles for a dog, right? And I never did it. And sure enough, it exists somewhere, you know, and it happens all the time to people who have creative minds or inventors or whatever. They'll see it suddenly in the market. Oh, doggone it, I wish I had done that. And honestly, I often come across things, you know, startup companies that think, man, that's such a simple idea. How come somebody didn't think of that before? So that does make it. Yeah, and I can see why people are nervous. But it's just like in Hollywood. I'm going to tell you something. This happens all the time in Hollywood. People get paranoid about their scripts. They get paranoid about their scripts being sent around. Too many people are going to see it. They're going to steal the idea. No. You know, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen.
There you go. Yeah. So I guess this goes on, you know, it's another question, a follow-up question on that question. It was, what would be helpful to list some do's and don'ts, or some boundaries with early stage IP. Which
I'm sorry,
do's,
your audio was breaking. Your audio is breaking up a little bit. Can you say it again?
Yeah. Could you list some do's or don'ts for early stage IP?
Do's and don'ts for early stage IP. Well, if in fact you want to patent it, that's a long process and it's very expensive. So if you're in the early stage, what you could do, I mean, if you're able to build an MVP, you know, and then you're already out ahead of the game. It's hard to know if this is a software product.
Probably. I mean, it could.
But there could be a device that's patentable too. So I don't know if I assume they're talking about a software product. Just do it. Do an MVP. Do it right. Apply for it if you can afford to apply for it. And I know that investors like to have IP. I mean, let's face it, they want a protected product if you can. But not everybody has that, and not everybody can even afford to have that. So just make your product as unique as possible. I'll tell you an example. This is not a software example, but it's an example of something I personally with. I started with two other people, a popsicle company. It was fruit and vegetable popsicles. They were the first ones on the market in the US, right? And we thought, okay, how are we going to distinguish ourselves other than the fact that we're fruits and vegetables? So what? We put probiotics in them. They tasted great. Did that make us, you know, better than anybody else? We got out ahead of everybody else. We were first to market, but we were unique. We had some unique thing about us. You can't patent food, by the way. You cannot protect food or any of these CPG products. Right. So, you know, you just race into the market. So my advice is to just go ahead and do what you got to do. You know, build it with your team of close people that you trust, or build it yourself if you're a developer, and build an MVP. You know, even if it's just bare bones MVP. And really, a lot of investors will don't care if it's crap MVP because we'll make it better. You know, if we want to give you money, we'll make it better. Product market fit, it's almost more important at that time than probably equally as important. You really need to figure out whether or not somebody actually wants this thing. And if you have identified it as a hole in the market already, and you know that it's needed because you need it yourself, or you know somebody who needed it, then you're already ahead of the game. But you've got identifying product market fit is probably the first thing you need to do.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give a shout out for any other questions. We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll be happy to take any if there's any on the audience side.
Whoa, that was not fast.
Yeah. If not, I'm gonna also then go back into you talk about the importance of relationship. And so you said don't just reach out to an investor asking them for something. It's building a relationship with them. And I think that's also where Capital Factory plays such an important role of, matching our founders to investors to build that relationship because they've built it with us and those investors know that we've built it with us, and then they can build it with them. So could you talk a little bit more
Exactly.
about?
Yeah, exactly. The best thing I can recommend is Gordon Doherty, who is with Capital Factory, gives a course, and he also has a book
Yeah,
on I think it's called Startup Success,
that's
and
correct.
he really has a formula that walks you through how you should deal with investors, and it's a long-term strategy. You can't just jump out and say, "Oh," and you don't go out like when you're desperate for money, you're on your last dime, right? So you have to start to build these relationships early on, and honestly, it does get them invested in your success. There's a company in Austin called Clean Cause. It's wonderful company. It's yerba mate. It's sparkling yerba mate, sparkling water, right? And they give 50% of their profits to recovery programs because the founder was in recovery. He started a cupcake, food truck for a while, then lost that because he had addiction problems. Went back, started this company. Now they're probably going to go public. I mean, they've really gotten huge. But what he did, he was very smart and he established relationships early on. He built a product that people liked. He's got great branding, great marketing. I mean, he really knows what he's doing. But he used that strategy, and I think that it was very successful for him. And I think it's successful for everybody. You can't, people, these investors get hit up all the time,
All the time.
constantly. And so they're looking for something new, something different, and somebody who's not nibbling at them like ducks.
That's correct. Yeah. And show some traction, like you said, whether it's the MVP, but you have users and you have that product market fit. That's what they're looking for. And, I actually just hung up with a founder and he was like, hey, we're not in the business of making money. We want to connect people to people, and I stopped him right there. And I was like, I'm not the person that would tell you, don't tell me that, but don't say that to other investors, besides from me. Like, you are in the business of making money, like you've got to prove that an investment is going to be done right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not only about money, but you're supposed to make money. Otherwise, don't
Right.
be a nonprofit.
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with being a nonprofit, and there's nothing wrong with being in between the two. By the way, being a social impact
Right.
for-profit company. There are a lot of investors that like that kind of investment.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So look, it's like painting a picture. You're an artist, you're painting a picture. There's many different ways you can do it. There's many different canvases, paints, brushes, all of those things, many ways that you can start a company. But it all starts with your idea in your head and your motivation in your heart and your willingness to work hard and to build your network if you don't have one yet,
Right.
and to put yourself out there. I mean, look, it's like standing on the edge of a diving board and you just, dive in. Hopefully you don't drown. Learn how to swim before you do that.
Exactly. Well, Jeannie, we appreciate you joining us. One final thought. Want you to give us what you've seen in Austin. What you would tell founders that are moving here or are contemplating moving to Texas? What would you tell them?
I'm sorry, the last part of your question, it was.
No worries. What would you tell founders that are looking into moving to Austin or they are already here? What would you tell these founders to take advantage of or do as founders to succeed?
I would take advantage of networking wherever you can. Starting with the meetup, starting with the lunch club, and starting with, all these accelerators and incubators, they're all open to discussion. So if
Yeah.
you have an idea, the world is your oyster. So just come in and try it. I honestly think that it's, you know, a more welcoming community here in Austin, because it's just bigger in LA. You know, it's just huge, and you get lost in the mix, and you can really stand out in Austin, I think, because it is smaller. There's more opportunity, and because, by the way, there's so many big companies moving here: Tesla, Google. You know, Google's already here. Tesla is coming here with their battery factory. So many other exciting companies coming here and going to be looking for workers. I told my daughter, I said, there's never going to be another time in your lifetime when jobs are more available and when people are looking for solutions to problems post-pandemic, because the world of work has changed, by the way.
Yep.
The world of work has totally changed. I'm working with a company in LA, by the way, called Perks, getperks.io, and they're all about company culture and building the company culture between the hybrid people, the people who are going to come in the office, the people who are going to stay at home. People do not want to work the ways that they worked in past years. One of the reasons people start startups is to give themselves some flexibility, by the way.
Exactly. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Well, wanted to thank you for joining us today. We really, really appreciate not only this, but you being a mentor at Capital Factory, helping our portfolio companies and, you know, helping the Texas ecosystem, because that's what we're all about. That's what, you know, helping founders, helping them advance and grow and exit and get acquired and get money.
Absolutely. I think there's no place. Honestly, Capital Factory, I mean, I've been in New York, LA, San Francisco, Dallas, and Capital Factory is in Austin, Dallas, and Houston. They've got footprints in all three cities. And I don't think you could do wrong by, you know, get involved. If you can't physically get involved, get on that Slack channel.
Totally. Yeah.
Great way to build your
Jeannie.
network.
Well, thank you so much. Don't know if you want to say other goodbyes or anything else to wrap up this session.
No other goodbyes to me. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the technical problems from out here in the Hill Country where somebody ran over my power line, obviously. Working on the street.
We made it work, and that's what entrepreneurship is about, right?
That's a good lesson for entrepreneurs. You wing it. You just fix the problems. It's like live television when I used to do live TV. You know, you just make the thing and then you correct as you go along.
Exactly. Well, just wanted to then wrap up the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you at Capital Factory, whether it's at Founder Salon on Monday, the second Monday of every month, or Open Coffee the second Tuesday of every month, also in Austin, Texas, at our office, 701 Brazos Street. We hope to see you soon, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.